What up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Gen Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. Brian, the void. The things that people aren't really taking into account in this whole conversation about the superhero genre and movies. We're gonna get into He-Man and that theme teaser that Brian sent me. We'll get into that. Chris Evans rumored for Star Wars, Booster Gold on Max, and the Superman mural. And we do a couple of special discussions on Hulk Hogan and what I'd like to sort of talk about as well, but quickly, and pay our respects to Malcolm-Jamal Warner. He-Man, Brian. When I saw that teaser, yo, I saw $1 billion. You know why I saw $1 billion? It wasn't in English only. It was in every language. This is not for the US, which is the key thing here. This is for the world to see. That's why this movie makes $1 billion, Brian. It's not marketed only for the US. It's marketed for the world to see. $1 billion. What did you think?
So they released this exactly 1 year out from the movie coming out, and it's just a logo. It's not a teaser in terms of footage, but as Pablo said, it's interesting because they released the logo and it looks like a little color change, but sort of a riff on the cartoon insignia. It's sort of similar, but a little modernization. And then they showed Masters of the Universe in every language, basically. But I got to be honest, what caught my attention, what was playing in the background, because I was like, is that? And then I was like, that's the theme. He-Man. That's it, man. I was like, they can't possibly be doing this. And I was like, that was it. I was like, you're using the actual theme.
You don't understand, yo. You don't understand what we're gonna be getting. The theater experience that people are gonna be a privilege to be a part of with those people who grew up with this. People are gonna be shouting it from the mountain.
They didn't send a panel to Comic-Con, but they did send a display. And I don't know if you saw the display, but it was a pretty smart little display. It had the front side gate of Castle Grayskull, and then it had the power sword, the actual prop, so you could see it like full up close. It's a perfect every detail of how kind of different that sword looks, they have it. And then on the flip side of the display, they had the entrance to Snake Mountain, and they had Skeletor's staff, and it's the staff with the horn. It's the identical prop that he used in the cart. Like, they are going so faithful to this. And I'm like, I heard the theme, and I was like, because He-Man always had this weird, like, positive sounding, like, yeah, I'm like, that is gonna be in this movie. I'm like, I lost my mind when I heard that. Yeah. So
They're going
all in. All in.
That's what I'm saying, yo. The transformations. I can't wait to see Idris in his set, in his getup. He's gonna be, yo.
But I'm expecting Idris to be in like the bulbous helmet and like the kind of space age suit. I think that's what he's gonna be in, orange and green. Like, I mean, Tila's in the right colors. I mean, they gave her pants a little bit, but like the halter and all stuff is exactly what the toy has.
I'm telling you, man, they're going all out. They gave you the music, yo, which was like, oh, wow. And it's like, why wouldn't they? They're going being very intentional with how they're doing this. And I was like, why wouldn't they use that music when I heard it?
And this is where, like, you know, I kind of criticized Superman a little bit for kind of just hanging on to that John Williams theme. But what Superman the movie tried to do was they try to punk rock it, right? To borrow their own phrase, right? Every time they use it, it's an electric guitar, it's synthesizer, it's not orchestra. I think that's what they're going to do with this. They're going to take the He-Man theme and they're going to play with it with synthesizers and guitars and modern, you know, big orchestra. Because back then it's like a really simple, like almost keyboard they're using it with. And like, so I think that could be fun and add a little color, but I'm just dying for the first actual trailer of this. We might have to do an emergency show the second that drops. Here's my request for them. Please do not put "I have the power" in the trailer. You can show him with it like this. If you want to show like this, like he's about to, but you got to cut that off. Do not put that scene in before you get to the theater.
They can't do that right now, man. They got to save that for the theater. They got to save that for the theaters. If you guys agree, try to get. I'm telling you, hit that like button. If you guys agree with that, hit that like button. I'm gonna start saying it now. Hit that like button because you don't want to see this in the movie. You don't want to see that in trailers.
No.
Not even when it's like a day before. You know how they start showing stuff. Like, don't even do that, yo. Don't even do that. I'm hoping the teaser is just shows so little. If you show me a shot of eternity, that's fine with me. But
100%.
don't show me the money shots.
I think if you want to tease some of the costumes and the authenticity, that's great. What was described at CinemaCon was a sizzle reel of the costumes. Like, I'm fine if the trailer is mostly that, just sort of almost like still frames to like introduce you to a cartoon accurate Eternia. But I don't need to see grand set pieces. I don't need to see transformations. I don't need to see that. But I can't remember if I sent this to you. There's a clip of Galitzin training with the sword. Have you seen this? It's pretty good. Like he's doing fight choreography with the sword. He's just like warming up. And I'm like, oh, they're teaching him to actually swing this thing for real. He does not look silly. It doesn't, it looks not quite Phantom Menace in terms of its pacing, but like a little more like he's twirling it, swinging it. And yeah. Anyway, it's from a while back, but I had not seen it before.
Yeah, it's a month ago. Oh yeah.
You're
Oh
right.
yeah.
Like, it's not terrible. Because He-Man sword fighting doesn't have to be like Phantom Menace fighting, right? These are not Jedi, right? He's a big dude swinging a heavy sword. Like it can't look silly either. And so I was watching this video and I was like, oh, okay, so it's not silly. Like you want him to actually have a really staged fight scene.
Think back to Conan the Barbarian and how he handled it. So it's the same sort of thing here.
That was also a thick sword that Schwarzenegger used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, cannot wait.
I think for 2026, we talked about this. My serious, elevated movie anticipation is clearly the Odyssey. My fun anticipation is clearly this. It's not even close. Not even close.
Chris Evans
Master negotiator.
looked like he was making some deals. Chris Evans is rumored to be going over to the Star Wars universe and have a role in that. Perhaps as a Jedi, who knows?
Yep.
What do you think, Brian? What era is he looking at being a part of in terms of Star Wars?
Great question. So there's no confirmation as to which project. I think people are naturally guessing that it's the Sean Levy Starfighter project, in part because he and Ryan Gosling co-starred in The Gray Man previously. But I think the question you're really asking is what should he be negotiating for? And the answer is he should be negotiating for Dawn of the Jedi.
I was thinking about that.
But that's what he should want. Now, I believe this rumor. Why? Because this is how he becomes Cap again. This is the answer. Marvel's been bringing cash, and he's kind of been hemming and hawing and playing it like Garfield. This is the thing that will get him to pick up the shield again. They'll be like, we'll give you a part over there in the Star Wars universe if you give us a rerun as Cap. And I think that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Good business for him.
Chris Evans.
Maybe good business for them too. Yeah.
Yeah. Then that means you're only probably getting just one movie, too. I don't know, just one. I think this is just one off. And he could be good with that and not have to be in the future part of it and play a reoccurring role and have to do that. So it'll be interesting to see what role he is vying for.
I think it's one of those two projects though. Does make the most sense. It's either had a good like Gray Man's a terrible movie, but it's like he might have had a very good experience with Gosling, so that would make sense. Or it's, hey, there's this cool new thing that James Mangold, who's a really good director, is over here doing. I get to play in that sandbox. As you said, I'm not signing up for a decade's worth of work, but I get to then say on my bucket list, I starred in a Star Wars movie. I think it's one of those two.
Booster Gold on Max. What do you think about that? I mean, that isn't. I mean, certainly not a movie.
No.
But it can be an interesting, fun show on Max. What do you think?
I agree. So this was actually what got my attention, was more just that they were committing to, this is Max making its second commitment to a DC character, right? That's what I was interested in. It's like, okay, we went Lanterns out of the gate. That's a big, premier TV swing. And now we're going a little lighter. But I agree with you. Booster Gold as a movie doesn't interest me at all. Booster Gold on HBO, where you kind of have free reign to play with that comedy and, have a pretty good budget and maybe get I'm not familiar with, it's like Flag of Our Death. There's a guy he's got some stuff on his resume, but I haven't seen it, the creator they're bringing in to run this show. But I kind of was like, okay, so if I'm Max and I'm like, I got Penguin and I got Lanterns and now I want something light, so I'm going to go Booster Gold. I see it. It got me more interested because I'm generally not a booster. Some people really love this character, really love this character. And I'm kind of like, I'm okay. Like, I'm just like,
Yeah, me
right?
too.
It's like, it's in moderation. Booster Gold is in
I
moderation.
got my fill in Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think in the right hands on TV, Booster Gold could be not Peacemaker, but headed in that direction. Does that make sense? Of it brings in a broader audience, even though it's a comic book show. I think Peacemaker, we'll cover it season 2, even though it's not necessarily our thing. Peacemaker has brought in a non-comic book audience that's made that show a bigger deal. And I think Booster Gold has that potential. So I look at the TV Max lineup again, and I'm just like, for whatever else Warner Brothers doesn't do, HBO generally knows TV. So this could be fun. Could be fun.
Yeah. A Superman mural was introduced recently in Cleveland, correct?
So it's in the movie, and it's in the Hall of Justice. And so people started pinging James Gunn. And so he then put on socials a detailed blow up of the mural, so you could identify every DC character who's in the mural. And it's like Liberty Bell, Bullet Man, Max Mercury, TNT, Phantom Lady, Atomic Knight, Gunfire, Wildcat, Freedom Beast, Maxwell Lord, Dan the Dynamite. There's so it's a lot of DC library getting deeper and deeper. And then Gunn says, someone asked him, have any of these, so we know Sean Gunn cameoed as Maxwell Lord, obviously, in the movie. So they then said, has anyone else been cast? Have you, and Gunn immediately is like, yes. In fact, 2 of these characters are critical to upcoming projects. And I texted it to you, but I was just like, so one, this is where James Gunn excels. To be fair, he excels living in these lesser known characters that he can bring to life.
I don't give a
this is the definition of cart before the horse. Can we get Batman right? Can we get Wonder Woman right? Can we get Lanterns off and running? Can we get Martian Manhunter? Can we get Flash fixed? This stuff is fine. That's all, whatever. But your universe is not going to live or die with whether Wildcat or Liberty Bell work. Okay? So it just kind of feels like a...
Don't waste my mother time!
Word, man. I'm not interested, yo. But whatever. He's the boss.
I get it.
And he's going to do whatever he wants.
It has a little bit of this echo chamber feel of there is this camp of really gun fanatics who eat this stuff up. And so he, they're the ones engaged in that conversation. He's like, yeah, we got a couple of these casts. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. We can't wait to see them. And then there's a mainstream audience that's like,
Who the hell is that?
Right? Mainstream audience is call me when they cast Batman. Then I'll care. And that's just how it is. Like, you got to read that room and recognize that.
Zaslav needs to tell him, yo, I know you're enjoying this, but do what you got to do to make this work. Don't go off and just to do things that you want to do because you've been waiting for this moment all your life. I need you to make me some money. Huntress and what DC's international strategy, Brian.
This is one of the more underrated stories of the last month that I think, with Superman and Fantastic Four going on, really hasn't caught on. But DCU has a Huntress, and it's somebody from James Gunn's Rolodex, Pom Klementieff, who was obviously Mantis in Guardians, and you most recently actually you saw her in Mission Impossible. She is playing Huntress, but the catch is she's playing Huntress in an international show. So a show that is going to be produced and built and premiering overseas. Now, will it reach the US in HBO Max? Yes. But it's not going to be promoted as a US centric show. And what's interesting is that then led to a little bit of a so they actually, in this case, it's being anchored as a Korean show because Klementieff is half Korean. And so the Huntress show is going to be set, marketed, and built in South Korea, aimed at that audience first and foremost, and then brought to the global audience. This then became why. And it came to light that some of the international strategy of DC and some of how they want to attack representation is they want to launch local shows in local markets that they then hope catch on globally. So this came up in the context of, I think Gunn made a comment of, I'd love to see an Indian hero, but in like a Bollywood production in India. I just was like, that's outside the box thinking. I don't know how big these shows will get worldwide. And I don't know, like, those markets are all different sizes. But I think it's fascinating because Huntress is not a nothing character, right? That's like a known character, at least probably like in that second tier, pretty common character. We've seen her in US iterations and animation. And Pom Klementieff's, again, like, is she, Jennifer Aniston? No. But like, is she known at this point in IP world? Absolutely. And so to put her in the lead and for her to take the lead of a show kind of in partially her native Korea, I just was like, I'm interested to see what characters make it from the library, which then would be like, okay, we're going to maybe change the ethnicity of a few of these characters, but we're going to do it inside of a production that's taking place in that country. What do you think about that? What do you think about that?
What immediately comes to mind is Vixen for Africa.
What do you think about that idea of like an international strategy to create representation and diversity, but you're actually targeting the local market? You're not just flipping the ethnicity in the US and then exporting it.
I think it could be a market that's quite honestly ignored, and it gives them the ability to make those characters popular in that locale. I think as far as when you think about Justice League Unlimited, you think about all those characters and where they come from and stuff like that. So them doing it this way just makes sense. And if they can pull it off, I think is a brilliant strategy.
Isn't it a little bit like, it felt a little bit like the Clayface approach, where it's like, we're gonna create Blumhouse horror and we're gonna put a DC character at the center of it. So here it's kind of like, if I'm Warner Brothers, forget DC for a second, I want to create a Korean action drama show, but now I'm going to put Huntress as the star of it, as opposed to some other made up character. What I'm trying to figure out is, are like you and me based in the US, are we more or less likely to find and watch this project because it's made in Korea, or has, maybe the language is in Korean and then they dub it into English, kind of the way because like Netflix does this, right? There's a fair amount of foreign product on Netflix that we watch that is actually quite good, and I don't care that it's made in France or wherever.
Exactly.
Like
That's the
Money
approach.
Heist. What was the one with Omar Sy where he's the thief that you put me onto?
Lupin.
Right. So like shows like that are fantastic on Netflix, and it's like they're made overseas.
That would be dope. That would be dope. Because it takes us away from it takes us away from the norm. I think you know what I'm saying, into a world that we're not often uh engaged with or looking at or seeing. So it offers that different look in a different place where these characters are operating in. I think it
And
makes
like
sense.
weirdly, yeah, it's
And it gives them it gives them the ability of those people to possibly be interested in the other stuff that
so
connects
that's
to
the
that.
other thing, right? Because we just talked about with Superman and even a little bit Fantastic Four, like the international box office, certainly the China box office, that stuff has not been as strong as it used to be. And now here comes DC saying we're actually going to, cater to you guys a little bit more by not just having a character who has ethnic roots tied to your country. We're actually going to bring an entire production to your country. So weirdly, it's almost like less political, because it's like if you just flipped Huntress's not that Huntress is a huge deal to do this with, but if you just flipped her ethnicity in an otherwise US set, US made, Western driven show, that's one thing. If you actually build an entirely Korean production where like all the cast and the crew and the directors are all from Korea, clearly the Korean audience is more likely to gravitate toward that. And I don't know that it stops. Like I said, that's why I lose the Lupin, the Money Heist. Like, I don't care who made it. I just care that it's good. And then, and in the case of Netflix, they've gotten pretty good in some of these at dubbing it too. So like the English dubbing is a lot better than it was back in the martial arts days of the 80s and stuff. So yeah, you can do that. And I'm just curious to see where this leads, because I was just like, this is very different than what Disney has done, or anyone has really tried with the library. And it might make, like I just made fun a little bit of James Gunn with the Superman mural, but like that is how you get more of those characters into the world without messing with the main line product. A Vixen show that's like got roots in Africa, great. That's actually like I'm more interested in hatching her that way than like, hey, we got to shoehorn her in because we need another female lead in, I don't know, Lanterns. Watch this one, because like I said, Pom Klementieff was not a nobody, and I was like, Huntress is not a nobody. Like that was interesting. So who will be next?
You want to start with Hulk Hogan?
I want to start. Yeah. So Hulk Hogan passed at the age of 71. We wanted to talk about it a bit on several fronts, actually. But yeah, I think just like I'd be curious as to your personal relationship to, because we both grew up at a time when Hulkamania becomes a thing. And he absolutely is the first professional wrestler that I could name and recognize. So I knew him as Hulk Hogan before I saw Rocky 3, which I think for some people would be reversed. He's obviously in Rocky 3 memorably as Thunderlips, but I saw him as Hulk Hogan, with waving his American flag and with his Rick Dennis theme song and tearing that became like one of the bigger pop culture things of the 80s. And he was every bit a sort of hero to kids, I think in particular. When like he was an action figure come to life. We talk about He-Man, like he kind of was like a real life He-Man. And and it's weird because you go back and you watch the footage. He's not a great wrestler. Like he's not a tremendous athlete.
Oh no.
This is the definition.
To me, it's like watching
Yeah,
He-Man now.
his moves are so simple. The big boot and the leg drop are like as unathletic a finishing combination as you're probably going to have. But he's got so much charisma. He's so good on the mic. His ability to, as the hero of the feud, elevate the feud, whether it was with Piper or with the Brain or ultimately with Andre the Giant, perhaps most memorably. And then with Ultimate Warrior, when he finally kind of seized the title, none of those happened without Hulk kind of being Hulk. And
Yeah.
he is a one for all of the wrestling megastars that have come since. To me, he's a one of one. I mean, there's just never going to be anything
Yeah.
quite like Hulkamania ever again. And so, yeah, I know
Yeah.
the personal life and there's some other stuff later on that gets, that's dodgier. That's not what I'm here to remember or commemorate. I'm commemorating
Yeah.
the wrestler, the persona, you know, what he became culturally, in the 80s in particular. And yeah, I mean, there's just not been anyone like that I can remember. So
That era of wrestling was certainly an exciting era. I remember having to sneak to watch Saturday Night main event with Hulk Hogan when he used to pop up. But he certainly was like sort of like the Michael Jordan of wrestling. Everybody knew who Hulkamania was, or Hulk Hogan was, and that whole movement. And then came the leg drop on Macho Man Randy Savage, joining the NWO. Changes the world. For the business, for the wrestling business, he certainly elevated, or one of the hands that elevated it to a place where I don't think many thought it could go.
I completely agree. I was trying to think of like Hulk Hogan, like Hogan moments that I think live on or will live on. I came up with 5. So I think Thunder Lips chronologically actually is the first. That scene in Rocky 3 is actually really cool because Stallone is so small and Hogan is so big. And it's like he sells it so well, right? That you can see like in the scene, like Rocky's kind of thinking, like, is this real? Is like, what's going on here? Like, I'm actually getting beat up. It's just one of those random things where it's like it doesn't have to be in that movie, but I'm so glad it is in that. And it winds up being, I think, in a weird way, like a precursor, because that's 1982. That winds up being a precursor because WrestleMania 1 is 1985, and that's Hogan and Piper. And so the Thunder Lips is kind of like the appetizer for what's coming as a persona. So that's the first moment.
Yeah.
For me, the second moment is WrestleMania 3, right? It's Hogan and the Giant in the Silver Dome in Detroit where they break the record, 70,000 people, and he picks up the Giant. That to me is like, and granted, I know the Giant had to kind of
Yeah.
help him a little bit,
Iconic,
but
yeah.
like that is still, to my mind, like and they had been friends, right? Like all through, and then Andre finally turns on him. And then that match, I think, and that moment to me are like, that's where he felt like superhuman. It's like, oh, he lifted the Giant. This enormous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The third one for me is where he loses to Ultimate Warrior because I think he had to eventually not be the champ to kind of keep being himself. And I never thought the Ultimate Warrior was that great of a wrestler, to be quite honest. That was never my favorite. But
Yeah.
like,
He was intense.
yeah, that moment is cool where he goes for the leg drop and he misses, and then you're like, oh my god, he's actually going to lose because he hadn't lost in like years, right? So, and then you said number 4, which is he shows up as a third member of NWO. That is like he turns heel, bad guy Hollywood Hogan, right as the peak of WCW. They start beating WWF in the ratings, and like that was a seminal moment where it's like, oh, this guy can actually be something else. Like he can do his shtick, but as a bad guy. And then I actually think number 5 is he has the swan song. And I think the swan song is he fights The Rock at WrestleMania, is it 18 or 19? And it is this generational collision of, quite honestly, the Rock becomes the closest thing to Hogan 20 years later. Like, and when that match is actually a really good match between two guys who aren't necessarily like the most technical wrestlers, but the buzz is just like,
Yeah, yeah.
it somehow is like if you could take like prime Michael Jordan and have him play like, I don't know, Wilt Chamberlain or something one-on-one. It's like something that makes no sense timing wise. You put them in the same place and have them square off. It's just one of these like really cool, like he still has the magic, even though he's well past his prime. And quite honestly, The Rock was past his prime as a wrestler at that point too. So you're watching these two legends go at it. But it just was a reminder of like nobody really captured imagination or whatever the way Hogan did at his peak. As you said, like the action figure, like, the amount of people who had this shirt or would do that, like, it was a
Hulkamania was running
yeah,
wild.
"What you gonna do, brother?"
It was running wild.
And he
Hulkamania was
became
everywhere,
synonymous with the
yo.
United States in a weird way, because remember, he would used to carry that flag to the ring. And remember, like, what was the one it was kinda silly, but the one where, like, Sergeant Slaughter turned traitor, and then they needed Hogan to, like to regulate, to bring it so, like, they used him as this patriotic figure, and it just
Yeah.
there is an element you had to have been there to truly appreciate it, but he he understood the magic of character and persona and how that goes so much further than the kind of flips and finishing moves that you can do.
Don't meet your heroes.
Well, so here's the other question for you, and I had texted you this. There had been this Hulk Hogan biopic kicking around, which if you watch Thor: Love and Thunder, part of the reason why Chris Hemsworth is so extra jacked in that movie was he was attached to play Hulk, and he was training to be Hulk, and then the project got shelved. It never happened. He's no longer attached to it. But with Hogan passing, do you think now do you think they go back to that project and try to revive it?
I mean, the thing is, towards the end of I mean, if you focus on a specific part, but even so, is like, I mean, if you can do OJ, you can definitely do Hulk Hogan. Is whether people care enough to see the performances. That's interesting. I don't know.
But like they're doing, I'm excited to
It'll.
see Smashing Machine, right? Which is itself based on a documentary, and it's The Rock doing Mark Kerr, who is a much lesser known but sort of almost cult figure in UFC as like an original UFC champion. And I'm super excited for that film. But like if that film is a hit and if that film sells on any level, how does a well-made Hulk Hogan biopic not a hit? Like that character is still globally known through the years.
I guess it would be painted as a tragedy. I don't know because it can't end well.
I mean, I get it, but I mean, I think there haven't been many movies made about the rise of professional wrestling itself. And he straddles that line of like, wrestling in Japan and all the kind of the night shows and the small time shows before he becomes at the vanguard of elevating WWF to this mega entertainment phenomenon that can put 70,000 people in the Silverdome. Like there's a story there of like rags to riches, right? And him becoming this true hero. And then you're right, if they wanted to take it all the way through to the fall of Hulk Hogan, they can do that. But I don't know. This feels like one of the more rich texts of this type that you could do as like a part sports movie, part biopic, part, just kind of fun action, adventure type of thing. I don't know. And he's a character
Yeah.
to play, right? He's a
There's
complex character to
there's
play
certain lot of.
because there's the persona. He's a troubled guy, as we know. Like so, I hope it happens. Now, I hope this weirdly kind of pushes this because it would actually shine a light more on his early days, like before he became kind of a caricature. Only in the life of somebody like Hulk Hogan or a former WWF superstar could you have. You saw that thing with Jimmy Hart like right before he died? So Jimmy Hart, right, from the
No.
Hart Foundation, he basically had put out a statement saying it was something like Hulk is fine. He's not on his deathbed at all. What are people talking about? And then he passed like 2 days later, and I'm like, they're still feuding. Like, like the Hearts and Hogan are still feuding, like 35 to the very last day. Like, what is going on here? Evil Jimmy Hart. Oh, he's fine. What are you talking about?
Uh,
Google the story. It's
oh
crazy. It's like,
snap!
why is Jimmy Hart even in this story? Like, what do I?
And one final sort of look back at the life of Malcolm-Jamal Warner to me was someone who I looked at as someone I can sort of he was sort of an example of life that I guess a lot of kids sort of live through, and not necessarily having rich parents or anything like that, or professional parents or successful parents, but still had his own struggles and still trying to overcome them. And one of the episodes, I think, when he discovered what was his thing that he was struggling with, sort of was a moment where a lot of people sort of connected and sort of motivated to sort of overcome those barriers that they have within themselves. But there was one thing that he said a long time ago, not a long time ago, but some time ago, in terms of being a father and loving your son and taking care of them, and the things that he said with regards to that was something that really actually changed my life in terms of my approach as a father. And so I eternally thankful for those words that he expressed on how to handle that. So rest in peace to him.
Absolutely. Obviously, a foundational member of the Cosby Show, most notably, but went on to have a really long career. Like he was still like lead or co-lead in television as of I think like 2 years ago. I think he did go on to have sort of a pretty long and successful career beyond that, and popped up here in a number of places. So yeah, and I think it's weird because I think with the controversy that surrounded Bill Cosby later in life, I think people started to re-lens the Cosby Show. But it's interesting because the supporting characters of that show were, critically important, all went on to have great careers. And so him among them. So, and that's something that shouldn't be obscured by, whatever you want to say about what Bill may or may not have done. So I think that's sort of important to remember. And really, I gotta say, like, real tragedy the way he passed too. I mean, like when that came out, right? The first headline didn't really
Yeah,
indicate what actually had happened. And then you find out that he basically is with his daughter swimming, and they were able to save her, and then he drowns. And you're kind of like, that is, a truly tragic and
yeah,
heartbreaking way to have a father-daughter kind of separated in that regard. But
yeah. Let us know what you guys think of all the topics that we discussed today. He-Man, Evans towards Star Wars, Booster Gold, Superman, and we'll see you next time on the Nudge Report.